चलें ठीक है सर। औज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम, बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम। वमा लना अल्ला नतवक्कल अलल्लाहि वक़द हदाना सुबुलना वलनस्बिरन्न अला मा आज़ैतूना वअलल्लाहि फल्यतवक्कलिल मुतवक्किलून।
सुभान
तर्जुमा। और आखिर हम क्यों अल्लाह पर भरोसा ना रखें जबकि उसने हमें उन रास्तों की हिदायत दे दी है जिन पर हमें चलना है, और तुमने हमें जो तकलीफें पहुंचाई हैं हम उन पर हम यकीनन सब्र करेंगे। और जिन लोगों को भरोसा रखना हो उन्हें अल्लाह ही पर भरोसा रखना चाहिए। सदाकल्लाहुल अज़ीम।
बेशक खुदा ताला का हुक्म बहुत बाबरकत है और हमारे लिए काबिल तकलीद है। और मेरा ख्याल है अगर हम अपनी ज़िंदगियों में कुरान फहमी को और शामिल कर लें तो हमारी बहुत सारे मसाइल ज़िंदगी के और आखिरत के हल हो जाएंगे। ओवर टू यू इफ्तिखार साहब।
Actually, thank you so much. So, I wanted to talk about, you know, all of us in Pakistan are now very much into going for what is called a modular integrated curriculum. And it's been a few years now that we started it at Rahman. Like we started it in 2010, but the first class was in 2011. So over the years now, the question arises whether, among other things, forgetting about the implementation part of it, whether the resources are there and whether people are trained in that or not. The thing I wanted to kind of look at is whether we are achieving something in terms of our graduates, whether they are really, in terms of competency, any better than the previous ones, the ones trained through the traditional system. And if so, what are the areas that they are better at, and whether we should continue with the program or modify it accordingly. So basically, the question is, are we addressing real world issues through our integrated curriculum, and whether this particular curriculum is the right one for addressing those issues. So I'm going to present a PowerPoint presentation, which is actually meant for a workshop, but I thought it would be okay over here as well. So can I share the screen? Let me share the screen and we start from there.
बेटा इनको सर को शेयर की
Sharing, please.
अब शेयर करें अब।
नहीं, अभी तक नहीं है।
उमेर।
एक मिनट उमेर
जी सर।
सर को होस्ट बना देना ताकि अपनी स्क्रीन शेयर कर सकें।
अच्छा सर। सर अभी ट्राई करें।
हाँ जी, अब आगे। All right, so this is. Let me just put this.
आगे आए we are looking at your screen.
जी. So that's the topic then, whether this curricular integration actually prepares us or our graduates for real world impact or not. So let's see if I can address this question. I should mention that I think this is a relatively new topic, because from what I could gather from doing a bit of literature search is that not many people have looked into that. But anyway, I'm going to present what is available, and this is an area that we can do future research on. So basically, I'm not a medical educationist in terms of qualification, but have been, doing quite a good amount of work in medical education, and also at Rahman Medical College. So I think I would be in a good position to present it. If there are any lapses in terms of the didactic educationists, please ignore them or mention them so that I can make it better. Thanks. Okay, so basically I want, first of all, to understand whether we are addressing the real world issues. We have to understand what is this integration, the curriculum that we have, whether it is an instrument to solve real world problems or whether it is not. and whether we can enhance patient care in the clinical setting and the communities. And of course, this last one here is that we should be able to develop curricula based on the Hardin letter. But then we don't just say integrated curricula, we would say curricula meant for real world impact. So I think we have to shift a little bit from just having a pedagogic model of an integrated curriculum, but we should look at the outcomes. It should be competency-based outcomes that we should address and see if we are actually delivering those to the graduates or not. So that, to me, is the central question over here. Otherwise, we're just changing a system without actually producing any change in terms of our patient care. So to define the first few things, we go for the ABCs first. What is integration? And again, this is something not very well understood by people. They just think that, if you link up two things together, then they are integrated. It's not like that. The actual definition is to make something whole or entire. It's related to the word integrity more than linking together. So it's basically, you want to make something, give a holistic or a 360-degree type of a concept about things. And that is what we should keep in mind when we are talking about integration. Why should we do it? Right? So Flexner in 1910 started his campaign. And then he said, the reform should be that first they should learn the basic and biomedical sciences and then go on to the clinical sciences. And this creates a divide because patients do not present in terms of basic sciences or clinical sciences. They present with a disease where just everything that has to be applied and applied in a proper, wise manner. So the students will not see the relevance of basic and biomedical sciences applied to clinical practice if you have the approach that we have, which we call now the traditional curriculum. The basics and the clinical are given separate silos, and there's no linking in between. The students develop box-like structures in their mind, and they do not think in a holistic concept.
Sorry for the interruption. थोड़ा volume raise हो सकता है, Omer, at your end.
जी मैडम.
मैंने तो I've made it full. तो देखें अगर आपकी तरफ से हो सकता है तो.
ठीक है, continue, Dr. Qayum.
All right. So the thing is that we tell our students that you're doctors from the day one that you enter medical college, because very few of them are actually likely to fail. So most of them are going to pass. So why should they not start functioning as doctors from day one? And that is the basis of the modern approach, or what we call the integrated approach. And this is the reason that we talk about, because it creates an unreal situation. This traditional subject-based discipline is unreal. Life and disease is not in subjects of anatomy or physiology or medicine only. It's a continuum. It includes all the subject that we teach, and even more than that, because we have to teach things like humanism and ethics and patient-doctor relationships, and a lot of science as well, a lot of research as well, which are things that we don't teach in the medical college. So it's important that we get rid of this traditional system and we have that integrated system, which is closer to what the students or graduates will encounter later on in life. So here, basic science learning is placed in the context of clinical and professional practice. So that comes first. That is the main goal. And the theoretical part of it is secondary to the clinical part of it. The basic theoretical part is secondary. Because you want to be a good clinician, and then you should also have a good amount of knowledge, no doubt about that. But practice should come first, and the knowledge should come along with that. So basically what we do now is we combine what we call vertical integration with basic and clinical sciences. We also have early clinical experience, and we have clinician and scientist partnerships, and the sciences are also there in the later years of the course. So that's a big change from the traditional system, and it is supposed to produce physicians who are more competent in terms of real-world situation. It remains to be seen whether we have defined the competencies that are to be achieved, or whether we have actually achieved those competencies. So that's a lot of area where we need to do more research because we've just introduced something, but we do not see the impact of it. We've not actually, done proper research on that. Okay, so important when the educationists sit down, they have to think of what to integrate. And it's very, very important that we integrate so that the students, they get a real life type that kind of an experience. Rather than being subjected to textbooks or classrooms, they should actually be learning in the real world environment, which is very much what some of the modern schools are doing. They start with the clinical aspects in the college, in the hospitals, right away from year one, and then the theoretical classes or the practical classes are, as complementary to the basic clinical, experience of the people of the students. So important is that the students must understand that they are doctors. They have to function like doctors. So that means they have to know how to deal with patients straight away. And the knowledge is the secondary thing that they will also get along with that. So knowledge is not to be, of course, belittled or anything, but if it's not applied to patient care, then for us, it is not really a knowledge. So the knowledge has to be changed by the educationists to the extent that the students understand the applicability of it, and they will then accept it. Okay, this is useful for me when I look at a patient, that I will have to remember this particular piece of knowledge, not forget it, because it's relevant, and not that it's not relevant. So it's important that we not make it a burden on students. We also should be very clear on what we call as essential or core knowledge, because that is what has to be remembered when you're at the bedside or when you're doing patient care at any level. And then importantly is to integrate progressively. It's no sense to go to the highest level of integrations right away in year one. You'll just have a confused student who would not know what to do. So again, it's a stepwise phenomena. You have to start from ABC and then go on to Z. But then you go to Z when you are in the senior years or the final years, when you've understood some of the ABCs. Then you can make the words and the sentences and so on. So one of the solutions that was there were others, but Harden in 2000 published the concept of his integration ladder. And there are 11 clear steps from the smallest step at the bottom to the highest step at the top. And of course, there is no hard and fast rule as to whether you should do all the steps or what steps you should do. It's recommended that you do a certain number of steps, but then some of the steps may not be done in entirety. They may be just done in smaller components of 10 to 20%. But the other steps have to be done in large amounts so that the students understand the integrated approach to patient care. And that was, his article, the abstract of it. And then it gives us these 11 steps, which is over here. And of course, we all remember them now, but initially it was an issue for people to remember what this was. And I remember a lot of discussion going on in my college when we were doing the integrated thing as to understanding what these are. So we had to take a number of kind of workshops or capacity building sessions with faculty so that they would understand these things. I cannot say that currently we have a completely integrated curriculum, but it's much better than what it was before. So it has been improved upon over the years. Okay, that's Ronald Harden. I met him in Mauritius in 2013. We went for a medical education conference and he was delighted to see us. We had a good session with him and we talked to him about the integration. All right, so here are the steps is in a ladder form, and that straight away implies that we are going from easier or simpler steps to more complicated steps. And the ones at the top, the MIT, the multidisciplinary, the interdisciplinary, and the transdisciplinary are the highest levels where you do not think in subjects, where you actually have a proper integration. The other ones are steps towards actual integration, which is actually defined by the MIT levels. But if you don't understand the steps at the bottom or as you go up, then it's difficult for you to understand or to make the MIT kind of a integration. So all the steps have to be done. So I'll quickly go over them because I think most of us know them, but just to memorize them or remind you of that. The first step is isolation, and this happened in the traditional system where departments were in silos. They would not integrate. They would not know at all what the other department is doing. They were concerned only with their own, subjects, and that's what they would teach. So no integration at all. You can still teach certain things in isolation, but we'll not talk about that now. I mean, that's a big discussion, because the educationists think of how to teach a particular topic, and sometimes it's easier to teach it as a single topic by isolation, and sometimes it's better to teach it by integration. So the second step is then awareness. Some departments, they get aware of what other departments means, so that maybe that there is redundancy. And we had that issue when we talked about the cell. So the cell was being taught by anatomy and histology in detail, as well as by physiology. So we said, why to waste time with so many, lectures and STF sessions and all that? So ultimately we combined it and gave it over to physiology, and now physiology is teaching the cell, the anatomy of it, as well as the physiology of it. So that way we got rid of some of this redundancy and overlapping. But here again, up till now, the teachers are deciding what to do and how to do it. Then is harmonization. Now, up till now, if you see what is happening, the teachers or the educationists are thinking about how to teach. So they are trying to integrate different things. So they now consult with each other, and then they try to find connections. They try to harmonize or to find some common grounds, and so that topics can be taught through a mutual session that they can arrange. And the students do understand at this stage that there are connections that are being made for them, rather than now that they're being taught separate subjects. Then is nesting. So what happens is that one particular teacher thinks that, there is a topic in another course that if I put it into my particular topic, then it makes it easier for the students to understand that topic. So he or she would then borrow that or nest it from the other department, of course, with permission, so that the other department may teach that in depth in their own time, but this particular department would take a part of it, and to make it easier for students to understand, nest it in their own particular curriculum. And I gave you some examples. Anemia may be better understood by having a patient come in with anemia, or the ECG may be enhanced by demonstrating changes in relevant cardiac patients. So you've taken you're not teaching them entire anemia or entire electrocardiogram, but taken some aspects of it and put it in your particular lecture or session, so that, you've nested part of it. Temporal coordination, this is something which is done most commonly, and most people misunderstand this as the endpoint of integration. Please, it is not. It is just something that you want to teach things at a time span when the time span is close to each other. May not be the same day, may not be the following one lecture, the other one after the first one, but maybe within the next day or within the same week, so that the students have not yet forgotten a particular topic and the other topic comes in, and that adds to their knowledge, reinforces their knowledge, and also helps them to integrate or to combine these two things and to develop a concept that, yes, this can be, it can apply to multidisciplinary levels, to or more departments can actually coordinate in temporal coordination. And I gave you some examples over here that you can have temporal coordination at many levels. I think many of the topics can be taught in temporal coordination. But then, the beauty of a module is that every week is planned so that you get a flavor of things. And if you make a nice theme for each week, then the students get a flavor of the different topics integrated together within that week. And the next week, a similar topic may be under a different theme, and they would get a different aspect of it. So that makes it very nice for the students to develop a concept, not just one rigid concept, but multiple level concepts. So temporal is a very good thing. It's a very strong level of integration, but then it has to be done very clearly and very, by cooperation with the departments, so that sometimes it can go the wrong way. The students may emphasize one discipline more than the other, when it should be the other way around. So again, it has to be thought of carefully as to what is to be taught first and what is to be taught later on, and how they are to be integrated in that temporal fashion. Anyway, that's a topic for another discussion. We're just going to today go over the different levels of integration. Then we have sharing, which is joint teaching. So here, departments will share their topics because they have overlapping content. And then you can have a joint session, call it joint teaching or joint sessions or sharing. And of course, you can pick up many topics because, I always tell my faculty as well as my students that the entire body is integrated. No system works by isolation. So if the body is integrated, you can easily pick up any particular system integrated with any others. And I still get issues, biochemistry cannot be integrated and FLA cannot be done and DMCAT cannot be done, but that's not true. You can integrate biochemistry with almost anything because, biochemistry is one of the fundamental things. So for any particular topic, there is a biochemical reaction involved, and there is physiology and there is anatomy. These three can be blended into any clinical aspect or any disease or anything else. So I don't see why people say it cannot be done. Anyway, that's another topic. But basically, yes, you can share content. Department should sit down and, make it easy for the students to understand things in one session rather than having multiple sessions. And sometimes they get bored. We've already learned this, and why is it being taught again? So sharing will make it more efficient for you to teach, and maybe you have more time now to to teach more things rather than having the same things again and again. Correlation. Now 7 is something which is very important because this is where the actual integration that we say of horizontal and vertical starts to take place. So the basis of it still is a basic teaching, but then you have to link it with the clinical content. And a good example is simply if you're teaching even biochemistry or biochemical, test that you do, or in pathology, then you can actually relate it to a patient of a disease, for example, the cardiac disease or person with renal disease or lipid profiles. So you can correlate that with the clinical profile and the findings of the patients, and you can link them up with the biochemistry. If you have, a bit of good connection with the lab, and you have your CPCs, then it's very good because the CPC type of a thing can be then shared at the student level. And correlation is a very, very powerful technique of making the students link the basics with the clinical sciences. So this should again be done more than the basics, because if the basics are linked right away in front of the students, they understand, okay, this is something I have to remember. So what level of anemia would be, symptomatic, for example, in terms of hemoglobin, in terms of clinical exposure, in terms of the, clinical appearance, and in terms of the symptoms of the patients. So stuff like that, greatly enhances the integration of basics and clinicals. Complementary, yes, something bit difficult to understand, but then it's important that you have to have things. Sorry, let me go back. You see, it's like DNA has a complementary chain, so it does not function without that. In the same way, there are topics which have to be complemented by other departments or by other disciplines to get an actual, understanding of them. So if you teach it as an isolated subject, then it's very difficult for the students to integrate or to link up these things with other departments. So it's better here that the things which cannot be understood without having recourse to what departments, they should be taught in this particular manner. And one of the examples is over here, which is not, it's a clinical thing basically, and then that's where we are going now toward more of the complicated things, or the clinical aspect comes in more. The holistic concept of patient care comes in more, and the text or the theory of it is secondary to the actual problem, which is the management of disease. So it requires input from all these particular things, and if they do not put in their input, then the complementarity is lost, because this management cannot be done in one department alone. So in real life situations, management of diabetes is a multidisciplinary issue. And if you leave it to one department, definitely that patient is going to suffer. So here it's very simple to understand that if you get a patient of diabetes, you have to refer him or her to multiple departments, without which the complementarity or the essential need of that patient in terms of care and cure are not fulfilled. It cannot be managed just by one department, medicine, for example, or surgery or something like that. So there are many, many examples like that, but mostly on the clinical side. Then we come to the top three level, the MIT, and I say it's just like the MIT of America. So it's the highest level here, and here you have to involve multiple disciplines. So you take a theme or a topic or a problem, and the PBLs and case-based learnings and stuff like that, they come in very handy when you're employing multidisciplinary or MIT levels of integration. Then those are very easy to be understood through this method. So here you want to solve problems or you want to acquire skills. And an example is Planned Parenthood, for example. You must get contributions from all these different departments so that the patient understands that Planned Parenthood is not just the gynecology giving advice to somebody, but it has to be done in a much wider concept. And the departments are now secondary. They are there, but they are secondary to the problem solution. Departments do not stand as the authority on anything. One department is not an authority. So the authorities are gone in that sense, but the authorities are reinforced by having them do that work together. It's like a teamwork. And unless, the departments put in their contribution, the Planned Parenthood program would fail because it requires input from all these people. So we are going now to the real high levels where actually this is how actually in a hospital or in a proper management or a hospice setting, this is where different disciplines contribute. The patient is rotated to different departments. And without that, not only that the diagnosis is not made, but the treatment plan and the cure and the follow-up, all of that is not possible. So this is directly now in terms of patient care or hospital-based or clinical teaching that we are at the higher levels now. And the same goes for the still higher level, which is interdisciplinary. So disciplines here are obscured, and you can actually develop an entire new course of study, which is, say, for example, coronary artery disease, which goes, it's not bound by any department, it's a problem. And of course, there has to be something which departments will have to contribute, but it's not owned by any particular department because no doubt the cardiologist has a great role to play in it, but then there are so many other aspects of it that have to be looked into. So again, when we talk of higher levels, we have to get rid of the departments. We only look at the contributions of different departments to the problem and how the problem can be solved. So as I said, these are ideal for PBL-based learning, and that is where one should employ PBL at the MIT level. Then the highest level is the transdisciplinary, and here again, we actually go to real-life situations, TBLs, and here integration automatically has to be done, comes up in the mind of the student. And here, if we have good clinical attachments, postings, clerkships, so the hospital-based or the clinic-based learning are the, examples of transdisciplinary, integration. Because again, you have to have all that knowledge with you to approach a patient or to even understand what the patient is suffering from. Even a symptom may be multi-systemic. And so just by saying headache, it doesn't mean that it's confined to the head. So here the student has to automatically, look up all the different knowledge bases, databases that are there in his or her mind, and then come up with certain questions and then try to find some solutions to that in the patient by doing the history, the physical examination, the lab test, the imaging, and so on. So that becomes, without any discipline, it's a problem which is above the disciplines, and then it has to involve a multidisciplinary input. So these three are examples of the cross-disciplinary integration that we talk about. And again, this is ground for a lot of research as well. Okay, now we finish that. Harden talks about certain things, and this is important to understand, that as you move up, there's less emphasis on the role of disciplines in the curriculum. And there is increasing requirement for a central curriculum organizational structure and greater participation by staff. So if the teachers have a concept of integration in their mind, only then will you be able to deliver a successful integrated curriculum. It's important that the teachers, the educationists, they should be clear on these concepts as to what integration is, and they should first do the integration inside their own department. There are many topics in each department which can be taught in an integrated manner, and then we go across the departments or disciplines to integrate with other disciplines. So that's important. So otherwise the program is going to fail. The DME itself cannot run a program like that, because what happens then, if the DME makes a program which is integrated, the faculty does not understand it, the departments do not understand it, and they will just deliver a lecture without understanding that it has to be taught in an integrated manner. So faculty, HODs, all of these have to be involved. And this is what we did at Raban also. We got all the faculty and the clinical faculty as well to sit down and make that particular curriculum, and that's how it's still functioning. So it's important that you have to communicate and you have to do joint planning. And then you have to make the outline of the teaching program, the sequence of the teaching, the aims and objectives, and the details relating to content and the method of student assessment. So it's extremely important that this entire thing should be done as an entire program rather than being a fashion or something like that. It imparts real-time learning to the student, and that real-time learning is what the student is in the medical college for. And what else is there? Okay, that's fine. We've already done that. It's not a big thing. Okay, very important, we should also evaluate our curriculum. So the integration ladder can be used also to evaluate the curriculum and to evaluate the level of integration in the curriculum. If we do not evaluate, and I would recommend both internal and external evaluation so that we get clearer ideas about where are our faults, where are our strengths and weaknesses, and then we can make it better over the years. Also important, you must evaluate it on the SPICES model. So to the left side is student-centered, and to the right side it is teacher-centered. I'm sure all of you are aware of that. So the more marks toward the left, the better is your curriculum. And so you have to do the evaluation on that. I'll skip that. This is for a workshop. We had a module on neurosciences, but just to show you how we make a model. So it includes different aspects. Okay, the second thing quickly is what we call CBME, or competency-based medical education. This is very, very important, a relatively newer concept, but this is the crux of what we want to achieve in terms of real-world applications, that we want to have our defined competencies of our students so that they become good doctors. Otherwise, education by itself is of no use. It does not give them direction. It does not give them competency. So it's not something very new, but then it's based on on the outcome the learner should display by the end of the training program. So this is basically what is called as an outcome-based education, and the product defines the process. So just like a factory line, you look at the product and you say, okay, this is a good factory. It has everything efficient and everything is working nicely. They're making quality products. And on the other hand, a poor product will give you a reflection of the quality of that particular factory. So if you look at our educational programs as something like a factory with an assembly line, with a series of specialized features, and actually we are creating a product from basically zero to something. So that something has to be defined. Where are we on the scale of, say, 0 to 10? From 0, have we achieved 8 or 9 or 6 or 5 or whatever? So that should be very clear, that we have to look at the outcomes that our curriculum offers. Otherwise, we are just wasting our time over there. So the ACGME and the global standards have been made by the American College for Graduate Medical Education. And these are the core competencies that they want the graduate to have. And these are 6. Actually, they were, I'll talk about that a little bit later. They were more, but then ultimately they've been, tapered down to the 6 ones. Patient care, and again, it's been defined as to what should be in patient care. Medical knowledge, practice-based learning and improvement, interpersonal and communication skills, professionalism, and systems-based practice. So these are the 6 core competencies that are taken as global standards, and we can assess our graduates by that. We can assess our students in the final year based on that. And I think it's a good idea that our final exam should be based on these rather than what, the MCQs or whatever that the university does. Are we actually making our students competent in these things? So this is another whole area of research as to how we define the competencies, what standard we expect. And we should work on that a lot more because we want a finished product which is able to deliver all these things. So let's look at them a little bit in detail. So patient care is being defined like that. Medical knowledge is being defined like that. Practice-based learning and improvement has a lot of things in it. And residents are expected to have skills and habit to be able to meet the following goals. As you can see, a lot of goals over there. So I'm not going to go into the details. These are available on the net. You can all look them up. But just to introduce you that now, if you're looking at real-world solutions that the curriculum offers, we must assess and judge our graduates by these criteria, and that we should be very honest in doing that, whether we are actually producing doctors who are going to make a change in the society, or whether we're just producing doctors who are just going to set up clinics and earn money and not really get rid of the disease. So I always tell my students, your job is to get rid of disease, not to make a bank balance. And I tell them, look, your country, my country, of course, but we have not gotten rid of our diseases. In fact, our diseases are increasing. That means you're more focusing on clinical practice rather than doing your job of getting rid of disease. So most countries have gotten rid of disease. So they still have doctors, they still have annual checkups, they still earn a lot of money. So it doesn't mean if you get rid of disease, your practice is gone. That doesn't happen at all, right? So we have to change that mindset that my job is just to sit in a clinic or a hospital, treat patients, make money, have a bank balance, etc., etc. Okay, sorry. Then interpersonal communication skills. Again, the details are given over there. Professionalism, again, the details are given over there. So I think we have to address all of these when we are assessing our final year students at least. And of course, we can make the assessments for each year so that they are progressive. But we can gradually increase the patient care aspect gradually over the years in sort of a spiral or any other system that you make. And then, of course, the system-based practice. So they have to work in teams and so on and so forth. All that, these are things we are really not teaching our students. We are still doing nothing but theory in the classroom. We call it integration, but we are not really approaching the real-world situations where our doctors are not competent to actually work by themselves. And of course, PMDC has now introduced the one-year house job, but that house job before the license, but that house job, again, to me, is not really what we should be doing, because the clinical teaching over there is just the routine. The feedback that I got is just we take a history and we do what the professor says. So that means they themselves are not competent to handle a patient. And that is after 5 years or 6 years, if you cannot handle a patient by yourself, I think that speaks volumes for our system. So if we do not link our curriculum and education with the outcomes that we expect, or with the real world outcome that the students will encounter later on, then we're not doing service to them. Common outcomes are clinical decision-making, teamwork, and forensic competence. And then, of course, how will you assess trustable EPAs and assessment tools are already mentioned. So you can assess your students or graduates like that. And this is not something which is not available. It is available, though it's not practiced very often, because people think passing an exam and getting a degree makes them competent. It does not. So all these have to be, in fact, assessed separately, and students should be graded based on that. I'm just mentioning this very quickly. Actually, what the ACGME has done is based on Englander's, competencies, which he developed before the ACGME did it. And so we'll just go quickly over that. He gives a lot more details about what it is. So I think you should look it up. It's very easy. It's available. So the details are there. And he has also added one other thing, which is not there in the ACGME. And that is personal and professional development. So this is extremely important that the physician should be able to develop themselves over time, not stay confined to what they learned at the MBBS or MD level, but they should take part in the CME program and be part of and be aware of the latest trends and everything. So I think this is very important. I don't know why it was neglected by ACGME, but professional and personal development are extremely important. So the graduates have to be self-learners and lifelong personal developers. So in Pakistan, the situation is fairly different. We just have the 7-star doctors. We call it 7-star doctor. But again, these are not bad, I would say. How much are they linked to real-world situations is yet to be assessed. PMDC has not given us any guidelines on that. If you look up this particular 2024 guidelines, yes, a lot of details are given. I've not mentioned them here. Knowledgeable. What is knowledgeable? They've given lots of categories of that, skillful, and so on. So details have been given, but I don't think that this was done based on any assessment that this is what is needed. This was just probably derived from what the rest of the world is doing, and they modified it a little bit. So there needs to be some good research work done on that as to make them more accessible and also to great people. Okay, I looked up what are the real world applications, and actually I came up with really a few items. I expected a lot more, but I don't know why people have not done that. So they say that clinical expertise and decision making is better in terms of integrated curriculum, and critical thinking is also better, and simulation-based learning gives them more confidence, and they're able to have the patient-doctor relationship in a better way and minimize the chances of error. So these are some of the areas which have been worked on. So these are the computer, and here is a paper over there. You can look it up yourself, but that is one of the very few papers which has assessed these things. So the competence gained are enhanced clinical skills, improved clinical reasoning, sustained competence, system-based approach, increased self-confidence, and a collaborative approach to patient care, which are all very desirable, but I think there are lots more to be done, and that is something we should try to do some more work on. And okay, this is a group activity, but some of you can do that. The first thing is to make intra-departmental modules and make your objectives not on what you've been doing currently, but based on CBME, and demonstrate the different levels of integration and evaluate your model based on the SPICES. So the first thing is this. And the second is to go across the departments, go make interdepartmental groups. And here you should work at the MIT level. Do not just work at the lower levels, because once you are interdepartmental, you should try and work for the MIT levels. And again, do the same thing. Define your objectives based on CBME and so on and so forth. So that's the end of it. Thank you very much. And I would be glad to answer some questions. I hope they're not the didactic or the strict educationist questions, theories, and all that stuff, because psychology, etc. I've read it, but I'm not able to answer that. But if you give me
Thank you, Professor
questions, I'll
Iftikhar.
be
Thank
able to
you.
answer that.
And can you unshare the
Yeah.
presentation? Thank you so much.
Okay, so that's that.
Excuse me. That was a great presentation. Thank you, Dr. Iftikhar.
Yeah.
And now we have some questions. I think Dr. Shireen has raised her hand.
Yeah.
Yes, madam. Very informative and excellent presentation. Sir, I want to one question. आपने माशाल्लाह से सारी subjects integration की examples काफी अच्छी दी. जो problem हमें आ रही है हमारे college के level पे, वो थोड़ी मैं share करना चाहती हूँ. The problem is integration with forensic medicine, with pharmacology and the other subjects of the third year MBBS. उसमें थोड़ा सा मुश्किल आ रहा है कि मैं सिर्फ पूछना चाह रही हूँ बाकी कॉलेजेस कर रहे हैं इंटीग्रेशन फोरेंसिक की या नहीं, या उससे क्या तरीकाकार हो सकता है?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I think, again, as always in Pakistan, we are downplaying something very, very important. Forensics is an extremely important part of the practice of medicine, and we have neglected that. It applies to every branch of clinical medicine, because we have to look at the forensic aspect of this. And one of the competencies which has been defined is a forensic science competency, that the student must know whether this is a forensic case or a non-forensic case, because the graduate at least must know that. And so I would say, yes, that there is room for that. How to integrate it is something very important, but Forensics deals with just about everything because ethics are a fundamental part, and the ability to deal, to recognize a forensic case, because we may be missing many cases which are forensic because we never look for them. And then if you get a true forensic case, we do not know how to gather the evidence properly, or how to, give the specimens, or to fill up the records properly. So that a lot of cases are actually mismanaged, and then, you end up in courts with so many trials, and there's no final good decision on that. So this is an area that has to be reinforced, just like biochemistry has to be, genetics has to be. Nowadays, we are going off to genetics. All the medicine is now, if you have not looked at the genome, you cannot even prescribe a pill, which is in personalized genomic medicine. This has happened in the developed world. So the forensic aspect of genetics also is there. So this is something which extends through all of medicine, but we've just kept it in silo as a separate department, which is to me criminal, because if a doctor does not know whether he or she is doing something ethical or not doing a criminal act, negligence or whatever, and he or she will not be accountable for that. And he or she will think that, I'm doing the right thing, and the patient is going to suffer ultimately, and the standards of our profession are going down day by day. Recently, I think some of you may have seen it, there was a contest among gynecologists for doing, what do you call this thing, the cesarean section in a record time. So they were competing with each other. Now that's totally unethical, right? So forensics applies everywhere, but yes, we are not integrating it. I agree with you there.
Thank you, Dr. Iftikhar Qayum. Sir Mulazim, do you want to take these questions? शायद अजीज साहब का हाथ उठा हुआ है.
जी, if there is any question from any side.
हाँ जी, मैं सर डॉक्टर राशिद महमूद से 2 बातें करना चाहता हूँ. ये जो असेसमेंट भी थोड़ा सा टच किया इफ्तिखार क्यूम साहब आपने, इंटीग्रेटेड टीचिंग और इंटीग्रेटेड असेसमेंट ये अलग चीज़ें हैं. इसको बदकिस्मती से कंबाइन कर दिया गया है बगैर प्लानिंग के, और इंटीग्रेटेड असेसमेंट की वजह से जो है स्टूडेंट्स बहुत ज़्यादा उनके स्टैंडर्ड गिरते जा रहे हैं. यानी वो कंबाइंड एक पेपर होता है, स्टूडेंट्स जो है चार्ज पे किसी ब्लॉक में वो बायोकेमिस्ट्री छोड़ देते हैं, किसी में फिजियोलॉजी छोड़ देते हैं, किसी में फोरेंसिक छोड़ देते हैं. और दूसरी चीज़ जो देख रहे हैं हम कि ये जब भी इंटीग्रेशन की बात आती है और मॉड्यूलर की बात आती है और ये सारी लेटर्स की बात आती है, ये सारी की सारी सिर्फ बेसिक पे अप्लाई की जाती हैं. क्लिनिकल वाले ना इसको मानते हैं, ना वो करते हैं, ना वो कर सकते हैं. वो सिर्फ ब्लॉक के नाम दे दिए हैं जी. ब्लॉक एम क्या है, वो गैनी है. ब्लॉक जे क्या है जी, वो आई है. ब्लॉक एफ जो है वो एनटी है. ये सारे के सारे तजुर्बात बेसिक्स पे हो रहे हैं, जिसकी वजह से स्टूडेंट्स की बेसिक लर्निंग भी ख़राब हो रही है. बेसिक साइंसेस की जो टीचर्स हैं उनकी टीचिंग में इंटरेस्ट ख़त्म हो रही है कि आपको उनको ऐसा सब्जेक्ट दे देते हैं जिसमें से पूरे 120 में से जो है वो 4 क्वेश्चन आते हैं. तो ना वो टीचर टीचिंग कर सकते हैं, ना वो स्टूडेंट पढ़ सकते हैं. तो ये इस चीज़ पे ज़रा वर्कआउट करना होगा कि इसको आप टीचिंग और इंटीग्रेशन जितनी भी इम्प्रूव कर लें, अगर आप असेसमेंट को इम्प्रूव नहीं कर सकते, अगर आप मल्टी मॉडल असेसमेंट नहीं कर सकते, तो इन सब चीज़ों का जो हम फ़ायदा हासिल करना चाहते हैं, जैसा कि इफ्तिखार को सबने कहा कि पेशेंट केयर इम्प्रूव हम नहीं कर सकेंगे.
Can I make a comment?
Do you want me to answer that, or are you answering this particular question?
आने इफ्तिखार से इसको आप भी थोड़ा एडिशनल कमेंट्स कर दें इसमें. बिल्कुल इसको ये चीज़
आपके पॉइंट से मैं एग्री करता हूँ lots of things, and the reason again is that as usual what happens, programs that are working very nicely in the rest of the world are crashed in Pakistan. And the reason is we do not have the basic concept. Our doctors are not educationists, and the educationists are not doctors. So we need to actually have a body where these things are looked into seriously, because the same thing is working very efficiently and producing excellent global doctors in the rest of the world. In Pakistan, they are failing. आपकी सारी बातें ठीक हैं, और उसकी वजह यही है कि हमने इसको सही अप्रोच नहीं दिया हुआ है. So I think that has to be addressed.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
Hello.
Please go ahead.
जी बिल्कुल.
बुखारी साहब, प्रोफेसर मजीद चौधरी.
जी जमीर भाई.
I mean, listen, I've been a part of this for a very long time in this country. You know, learning from Howard
माशाल्लाह
Barrows to the Qayum curriculum to the recently developed accreditation standards, which
Sir, you
included.
are not only the part, you are the pioneer in introducing. I still believe that when you are in initial stage as a professor, you established this.
Well,
Uh,
I helped 7
I still,
universities to.
Professor Majid Chaudhary Sahab, thank you, sir.
Right. And I think now, lately, I was the chairman of that committee of the PMDC, which developed all these accreditation standards, including the curriculum, of course. And having a lot of experience, I think there are two most important things. If the Khalsa, you did a good presentation, is to take the faculty on board.
Yeah.
I think faculty training has been missing in our universities.
Well, good morning.
And you know, I was the one who had it made compulsory for the faculty to have this medical education certificate at least. But I don't think certificate is good enough. I think masters should be done. You know, I have been running this program at the university, and now the University of Health Sciences of Lahore, where I was the chairman of that committee again, you know, guidance is basically from the PMDC documents, which I think everybody has been shared. Uh, and they have implemented, and I think 52 medical colleges in Lahore, or rather in Punjab. And but I think the most important thing is the commitment of the faculty. I don't know. We are all very scared. The medical education in this country had been taught in compartmentalization. But I think we started with integration in King Edward. I started in FJ, then in Lahore Medical College. But I think now it's up to the universities to implement those recommendations of the PMDC, which are there now. And well done, Iftikhar sir. Very nice presentation.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure
साहब
talking
एक
to
मिनट
you again.
रुकिएगा
We met in
इफ्तिखार
Women
भाई
Medical
मैं
College.
प्रोफेसर इफ्तिखार भाई इससे पहले कि आप जवाब दें मैं थोड़ा सा इससे कंटिन्यू के
Sir, please.
चौधरी साहब हमारे उस्तादों के उस्ताद हैं
हाँ जी.
वन थिंग मोर आई वांट टू ऐड सर और आई विल ये सवाल मजीद चौधरी साहब से भी पूछूंगा और आपसे भी पूछूंगा आपने सर ये बताया कि नो डाउट द मेडिकल एजुकेशन का भी हम पार्ट भी रहे हैं आई थिंक आई एम द पार्ट ऑफ 2011 अगर आप देखा जाए उसमें मुजफ्फराबाद मेडिकल कॉलेज में और फिर 2016 इसके बाद पार्ट ऑफ दिस इन इन स्टार्टेड एट लाहौर यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ लाहौर इसके बाद अच्छा और उसी के बाद एक टाइम था कि प्रोफेसर मजीद चौधरी साहब जब इंटीग्रेशन आई तो टीचर ने स्ट्राइक की रोड ब्लॉक किए और मुझे याद है कि उस जमाने में बड़ा मुश्किल था वन थिंग वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट सर जो ऐसा आ रहा है आई थिंक फैकल्टी आर नॉट ट्रेंड वन वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग एक बात जिसकी वजह से ऐसे है फैकल्टी जो पार्ट पहले एक टीचर और स्टूडेंट्स के साथ होता था वो नहीं होता टाइम नहीं देता और थर्ड उसकी वजह यही है मेडिकल एथिक्स का जो लॉस होना है जो आजकल सोशल मीडिया पे जिसकी वजह से हमारे डॉक्टर्स के खिलाफ एक बहुत बड़ी मुहिम चलाई जाती है हमारे डॉक्टर्स भी जैसे एक एक ऑपरेशन हो रहा है और एक वीडियो बन रही है आई थिंक दिस द ओनर्स ऑफ द प्राइवेट मेडिकल कॉलेज द लीडर ऑफ द पब्लिक सेक्टर लाइक वाइस चांसलर्स प्रिंसिपल्स एंड अदर थिंग्स they must take responsibility as a Professor Madeed Chaudhary has told that sir your faculty मैं खुद भी प्रिंसिपल डीन रहा हूँ the faculty is not trained जब तक faculty trained नहीं होगी इफ्तिखार भाई आपका मेरा इस बात करने से यही है कि हम एथिक्स से दूर जाएंगे प्रोफेसर मजीद चौधरी साहब आप मेरी इस बात से रिकमेंड कर वो इत्तेफाक करते हैं सर लॉस ऑफ
देखें आई for the last since 1994 I have been facing a lot of opposition I was the chairman Department of Surgery at King Edward, and I had it made compulsory by the PMDC that every institution will have a Department of Medical Education. And then a lot of people just put a little board, that's all. And now I think it's mandatory for people to hire these medical educationists. And I think it's very important. And now, as of now, I think younger lot of the faculty, they are being trained in medical education to some extent, but I think it has to be a continuous process. And even the curriculum that we developed at the level of the PMDC, I had medical students part of that committee of 27 people from whole of the country that I was the chairman of. But I think it's the commitment of the faculty that's very important in this day and age. And, talking about ethical issues, pardon me saying that, I was in Britain, all teaching hospitals. Would you believe there is no subject of forensic medicine? It's a postgraduate subject. And because they just concentrated on medical education rather than these ethical issues, which I think maybe it's required in country like ours, where everything is taken to the courts and not. But I think the universities and the institutions, they must uh, take the faculty on board. I remember when I was at King Edward, we started with this integration, and the basic subject teachers said, one of them said, I still remember, he said, लो जी, हमारी तो फिर इम्पोर्टेंस ही कोई ना रही, एक इम्तहान ही तो होता था. मैंने कहा जी आप तो 3 दफे साल में इम्तहान लेंगे rather than once. So I think we have gone through that stage, and we should persevere, and the institutions and universities will have to play a bigger role to have it in place.
Thank you, Professor Majid Chaudhry Sahab. It was lovely listening to you. And I want
मैं
to thank
इफ्तिखार
you
साहब से
here
कमेंट लेना
today.
चाहता हूँ इसके ऊपर. प्रोफेसर इफ्तिखार साहब
एक
जी.
मिनट सर, मुझे बात कंप्लीट करने दें. सबसे पहले तो मैं मजीद चौधरी साहब का शुक्रिया अदा करना चाहती हूँ, जिन्होंने CHP को मैंडेटरी करवा दिया था PMDC से to go to the level of associate professorship. That has really played a very positive role. बिकॉज अपने लिए वैसे वो शौकियां ना करें, लेकिन वो डिग्री के लिए और पोस्ट के लिए करते हैं. एंड दिस डज क्रिएट अ वेरी गुड माइंडसेट. थैंक यू मजीद चौधरी साहब. हाँ बिल्कुल, आप इसके बाद कयूम साहब से लें, और फिर शाहिद अजीज साहब ने हाथ रेज किया था.
Most welcome.
Sir, I agreed with you on all points, and I understand कि commitment नहीं है, क्योंकि faculty have to work in a different way. अब होता ही है ना जी कि you are doctors and you're supposed to know all your subjects and practice all of it after MBBS. आपने कहा कि जी मैं तो सिर्फ एनाटॉमिस्ट बनना चाहता हूँ, बाकी मैं भूल जाता हूँ. So this is ease and comfort that people are doing. They don't want to be doctors in the sense कि you want to get rid of disease. तो एक तो कॉन्सेप्ट ये चेंज करना है. दूसरा सर, टू इम्प्लीमेंट आई वुड रेकमेंड, मेरा अपना ये ख्याल है कि ये PMDC वगैरह नहीं कर सकते. वी नीड टू मेक अनदर बॉडी विच इज सोली कंसर्न विद मेडिकल एजुकेशन, और उसके पावर्स हों जिस तरह क्या नाम है, अपना फ्लेक्सनर को पावर्स दे दिए गए थे कार्नेजी फाउंडेशन ने कि भाई आप जाएं और चेक करें, और देन जो भी आप कहेंगे वो सारा कुछ होगा. एंड दैट इज हाउ दे गॉट द रिफॉर्म्स. So you need a powerful body which deals only with medical education, जिसके अंदर proper लोग हों, including maybe people from foreign universities who can guide us. And then what they say should be mandated in all the colleges. ये इसके बगैर इस मुल्क में नहीं होगा. हम लोग ऐसे ही हैं, somehow we look at authority जो कहती है तो उसके ऊपर अमल करते हैं, अपने तौर से कुछ नहीं करते हैं, which is very unfortunate, but this is what is happening. हमें फिक्र नहीं है कि हमारा बच्चा अच्छा डॉक्टर बनता है कि नहीं, कल हम उससे अपना इलाज करा सकेंगे कि नहीं. So all these things are secondary to us. What has been told by the authority is the prime responsibility that we take on ourselves. तो ये मसला है हमारे मुल्क का, and I think that we need a body separate from all these other bodies जो सिर्फ एजुकेशन में करे और उसके पास ये अथॉरिटी हो कि वो जो वो कहेगा और सही कहेगा तो वो इम्प्लीमेंट हो. That is
Well,
my
I think Flexner was just principal of a
Yes,
private medical
yes,
college
yes,
when
yes,
he was given this responsibility to look
yes,
into the pitfalls in medical education.
yeah,
But I think PMDC, if they function properly and normally, I think I have been trying over the last 30 years to have it at a place where we are now, starting with a Qayum curriculum. Would you believe that we developed a Qayum curriculum which was
yes, I
supposed
know.
to be implemented?
Yeah.
But I tell you, just because people didn't want to have it implemented, six medical colleges, they gave it in writing that they will do it, but they didn't.
They
But
did, yes.
then I think PMDC has taken a good course. And sir, बात ये है कि जितनी मर्जी बना लें, unless your commitment is there, nothing will work. So
Yes,
we'll
absolutely.
look at the University of Health Sciences. I was the chairman of that committee, and we had it implemented. And now it's a integrated curriculum
in
in
almost
50,
all medical colleges, sir, up to the
50,
final
I
year.
think 52 medical colleges, Bukhari sab, in
जी, I am there, sir, in the part of that one, sir. जी,
right.
शायद अजीज साहब, आपने हाथ खड़ा किया था, then you lowered it. Dr. शायद अजीज.
thank you very much. Thank you very much for giving me time. मैं दो तीन appreciating the Professor Qayum साहब की comprehensive elaborate presentation,
Definitely,
बड़ी
definitely.
बहुत अच्छी थी. I wanted to make one point clear कि ये जो हमारा इंटेग्रेशन के जी ये क्लिनिकल और प्री क्लिनिकल का प्रोफेसर राशिद साहब बता रहे थे कि ये साइलोस में काम करता है. देयर इज नो डिफरेंस एज सच, लेकिन कॉन्सेप्ट जो बेसिक बनाने के लिए हैज टू बी इन एट प्री क्लिनिकल लेवल, वो उसके ऊपर इंटेग्रेशन तो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, क्योंकि वो दैट विल होल्ड अ कॉन्सेप्चुअल जो क्रिटिकल थिंकिंग आती है इन इंटेग्रेटिंग द होल सिस्टम्स टुगेदर, वो उस लेवल पे ही हो सकती है. बल्कि आई वुड रादर से कि जो एफएससी लेवल या ए लेवल्स की है, उसमें भी बच्चों को अगर ला रहे हैं आप, यू शुड फाउंडेशन ईयर्स के मुताबिक दे शुड बी इंटेग्रेटेड इनटू दैट. बहरहाल दैट इज नॉट बियॉन्ड आवर स्कोप. लेकिन मेरा जो मकसद था कि क्लिनिकल जो है, क्योंकि उसकी बात अभी नहीं हुई, दैट हैज टू बी इन एज वी यूज्ड टू से क्लिनिकल जो शेड्यूलिंग होती थी. अब 70s में हमने वी हैव हैड मेडिकल एजुकेशन इन हमने किया, मैंने किया. तो इन दोज डेज द प्रोफेसर यूज्ड टू बी there all the time, and he would take all the students under his care, और वो क्लिनिकल मेथड कराते हुए बेसिक क्लिनिकल मेथड भी वो करा रहा होता था. एसोसिएट भी बैठा हुआ है, असिस्टेंट भी बैठा हुआ है. आई रिमेम्बर कि मेरे हाथ पर लगा कि जी मैंने कॉइन एक रखा हुआ था ऑन माय रिस्ट, एंड व्हाइल percussing आई लेट दैट फॉल डाउन. इस तरह इतनी लेवल पे आकर द रीजन दैट आसम पाकिस्तान इज, जैसे कहते हैं ट्रस्ट प्रोफेशन यू अबाउट ईपीएस प्रोफेसर, वो ये और डजंट टेक दैट मच ट्रस्ट, या वो वैसे साइन कर देता है कि इसने ही इज एबल टू परफॉर्म दीज and the things going. Usme, if you take responsibility of ensuring that the clinic training, the medical complete. दूसरा पॉइंट हमारा जो क्यों नहीं पा रहा, implementation is the problem, is the reason that we overburden not the students but teachers well, give day-to-day basis. Example, मैं आपको example एक आर्मी वो institute थे हमारे graduate. He told me 2 days time, please provide 1,000 queues. Now those were the days when there were not so much of banks available with the faculty या teachers के बाद. So it was not possible for me to give 1,000 MCQ prepare because we used to prepare on those bases. जो CPSP कहता था कि इस तरह बनाए बैठ के खुद. It used to take 3 days to make one MCQ for that. With so much of terms and terminologies that probably they are unable to integrate into their own teaching method. And then the patient is the centerpiece. He has to be like what was mentioned as that products dictates the requirements. Outcome is based on the product which has to be the patient is the product here. So we must focus on the interest of the patient, and that we do only when the doctor is able to physically perform his knowing all the knowledge, basic knowledge of anatomy, physiology, and it is not possible to really give the best of our system. The second, third thing is that system thinking, which is very important. The system-based practices, which was mentioned here, that the cost effectiveness of the health education and health, the cure part of the this health industry has to be taken into care. So all these factors have to be kept in mind when we integrate this thing. The 11 ladders, I remember in 2004, we started with those when Alam Sher came here and he started, and we tried to fulfill that. But making, I think, silos in that matter is not unless we are able to translate this into really practices of patient and student and the teacher coming together, and then they are able to implement this system. I hope I make
Dr. Shahid, Dr.
clear
Iftikhar,
about
your
that.
comment
Thank
about
you very
that.
much.
Professor Iftikhar, your comment on it?
Yeah, sir, I agree with you, although I couldn't hear half of what you said because of the connection. But yes, that is the whole point, that unless you are able to say that my curriculum is giving the desired competencies, of which patient care is number one, and then, of course, the other ones based on knowledge and all those other things. So we have not fulfilled our job. The integrated system actually addresses that. The integration is meant to give you that confidence and that capability and that competence to deal with the patient problems rather than being bookish, and relying on different disciplines. So that is the actual lesson that we get from an integrated curriculum. So if we understand it properly, it is the best system we have at the moment. And in terms of cost, I think it is very cost effective. Because if you make it efficient by getting rid of redundancies of different departments teaching the same subject again and again, so you're saving time, you're saving. In fact, if I remember correctly, when King Edward was formed, initially there was only one teacher who was the principal, and he would teach all the subjects. So a doctor is supposed to know all the subjects and be able to teach them. That is the start of integration, rather than being an anatomist or something like that. So if you have that common pool, then you will have less number of faculty as well, and they can teach multiple disciplines. They can teach in the MIT fashion. And also on the clinical side, they will have a touch with the clinical side as well. So they can incorporate those things in their own lessons as well. So I think it's very doable. It's just that we have not understood it, or we do not want to do it for various reasons. And I think that we should get rid of those habits of procrastination, but we should go forward with something that the world is doing, because ultimately now we are going to go for a global doctor. And if our doctor is not at the level of what the global doctor is supposed to have in terms of competencies, they will not have a market. They will only be able to work in their country, and gradually the standards will go down. So we have to go for that system.
Thank you very much, Professor Qayum.
Last question, Professor Rashid Saab.
Right. सर ये मैं अपनी एक बात तो कर चुका हूँ, लेकिन ये जो लफ्ज से 4-5 मरतबा यूज किया गया है कि फैकल्टी इज नॉट ट्रेन, मैं इस पे थोड़ा कमेंट करना चाहता हूँ। सर ये कंसेप्ट थोड़ा सा चेंज करना पड़ेगा। फैकल्टी इज ट्रेंड, बेसिक साइंसेज फैकल्टी इज 100% ट्रेन। सबने सीख किया हुआ। ट्रेनिंग से मुराद ये है, ट्रेनिंग लोग कर रहे हैं बीडीएस करके, एमबीबीएस करके, 1 घंटा भी किसी ने टीचिंग नहीं की होती, वो आके एमएचपीई कर लेते हैं एंड दे थिंक दैट दे आर ट्रेन्ड। एंड दोज प्रोफेसर्स हु आर टीचिंग फॉर द लास्ट 30 years, उनको कहा जाता है कि आपको कुछ समझ नहीं है। और सारा काम करिकुलम बनाने में, टाइम टेबलिंग में फैकल्टी से लिया जाता है एंड द क्रेडिट इज नॉट गिवन टू देम, क्रेडिट दिया जाता है डीएमयू को, जिसकी वजह से जो है वो इस चीज को फिर डिस्करेज हो जाते हैं। सो नंबर 1, फैकल्टी ट्रेनिंग के बगैर भी बहुत अच्छे टीचर्स थे, बहुत अच्छे डॉक्टर हम बना रहे थे। ठीक है, फैकल्टी ट्रेंड है, 100% CHP किया हुआ है। वर्कशॉप्स बहुत सारे टीचर्स ने मल्टीपल की हैं, कॉन्फ्रेंस अटेंड की हैं। ट्रेनिंग से और क्या मुराद है। और उनको जब तक आप एतमाद में नहीं लेते, जब तक ये कंसेप्ट माइंडसेट चेंज नहीं होगा कि भाई फैकल्टी को समझ नहीं है, मेडिकल एजुकेशन MHP करके विदाउट टीचिंग, देखिए उन्होंने कभी टीचिंग नहीं की होती, ना एनाटॉमी, ना फिजियोलॉजी, ना पैथोलॉजी, ना सर्जरी, ना मेडिसिन, कुछ भी टीच नहीं किया होता। वो सिर्फ टीचिंग मेथोडोलॉजी पे काम कर रहे होते हैं थ्योरेटिकली। तो इस चीज को जब तक आप कंबाइन नहीं करेंगे, फैकल्टी को ऑन बोर्ड नहीं लेंगे, ट्रेन फैकल्टी को भी ऑन बोर्ड नहीं लिया जाता, और सिंपल अल्फाज किया जाता है कि अगर आपने MHP नहीं किया हुआ तो आपको समझ नहीं है। तो ये माइंड सेट चेंज करना पड़ेगा। थैंक यू वेरी मच।
Okay, thank you so much. We are running short of the time. Professor Salma Kondi, over to you today to conclude the session.
बहुत शुक्रिया प्रोफेसर मुलाजिम साहब. I'm so happy to have Professor Dr. Iftikhar Qayum here as a presenter today. He's always been a great researcher and academician, and he has written so many synopses and helped people in their research in Aptabad. Half of Aptabad, half of the doctors are indebted and grateful to him, and now I'm sure it's Peshawar. So he's been excellent in academics. Thank you, Dr. Iftikhar.
Very welcome.
And
Very
thank you,
welcome.
Dr. Majid Chaudhary साहब, because वही कह रही हूँ, आपने अगर ये induct किया था when you were in the academic board in PMDC, the concept of introducing CHPE for early faculty members, that was a great move and a great step. I did it because I was already a dean and the principal, but I wanted to know what medical education was about. And really, these are really different concepts which I had no idea. But Dr. Rashid's concern is right. Actually, our universities, we are doing the integration. Our DMEs are doing well. Our professors are doing well. But there are certain resentments. The first resentment is that one of our professors stopped taking exam. He said, मेरे पास तो सिर्फ 5 नंबर हैं. Why should I be an examiner? और वही 5 नंबर मेरे लेक्चरर के पास भी हैं. Okay, that is one point. The other point was that there is something wrong in the assessment. For first year students, there was a lot of clinical input and a lot of clinical examination questions. Can you please shut your mic? Please up the mics up off kar dijiye. Acha, anyway. So there was a lot of resentment that way in the students कि उनसे क्लिनिकल सिनेरियोज के ज्यादा क्वेश्चन आते हैं, हालांकि वो फर्स्ट ईयर के बच्चे होते हैं या सेकंड ईयर के होते हैं. हॉस्पिटल्स में एज सच वो गए ही नहीं होते हैं. थोड़ा सा हमारी यूनिवर्सिटीज को इस लेवल की इंटीग्रेशन थोड़ी अवॉइड करनी चाहिए फर्स्ट 2 years में, बिकॉज देन दो स्टूडेंट्स आर एट अ लॉस whether to study basics or to study clinicals, and clinicals में किस लेवल तक, क्योंकि जो मॉडरेशन ऑफ एग्जामिनर्स है पेपर्स की है उसमें मुझे somehow लगता है काफी फॉल्ट्स और डिफेक्ट्स आ गई हैं. बाकी यूनिवर्सिटीज का मुझे नहीं पता, केएमयू की हद तक मैं बात कर रही हूँ, and I'm not criticizing, I'm only saying that so that they improve. I'm sure there are many people from KMU over here. तो ये 1-2 पॉइंट्स हैं, और असेसमेंट पे we have to work. तो इंटीग्रेशन एनडीएमई की सारी चीजें हमारी सब कुछ ठीक हो जाएगा अगर हमारा असेसमेंट ठीक हो जाए, क्योंकि टीचर्स और स्टूडेंट्स असेसमेंट में मार खा रहे हैं. So that is it, and thank you for being here. It was a Sunday और इतना ज़बरदस्त हमारा 25-27 तक जा रहा था. I thank you again, Dr. Iftikhar Qayum Saab, for giving us your Sunday and all the participants who took out their precious time and made this worthwhile. Thank you very much.
Thank
Allah
you,
ki aman mein rahe.
Professor Iftikhar from my side, and Dr. Salma Kundi. There are some certain comments. And thank you, Dr. Shirin. Agreed concerning assessment. And Dr. Shirin also gave the comment. Yes, faculty is, yes, there is a training. I think, Dr. Ayub, Professor Ayub, you worked with me for more than 3 years. 100% agreed with the Professor Rashid. Faculty at least basis is not well trained. People's zero teaching experience and handling the DME at place. I myself witness. So I think it is bilateral responsibility of the not only the PMDC, also the faculty and the institutions and the head of the institution and the nursing. And very important point, Professor Salma Kundi has highlighted about the first 2 years in the basic sciences for the MCQs and others. Hopefully, with this integration, with this webinar, we are just going to only give the awareness to the other peoples and eye-opening. Inshallah, we'll write an article on it and to publish it, and so that we, in bilaterally with the webinar and the publication, we can able to give the awareness to the teachers and the universities and the PMDC. Thank you so much once again, and inshallah
Thank
we'll
you,
be back.
everyone. Thank you, Mulazim Saab. Pakistan Zindabad.
Pakistan's in.
Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.
Dr. Gul, thank you so much for your comment. We agree with you. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.